Well, a dramatic day of ups and downs in a federal Delaware court ended yesterday when Hunter Biden pled not guilty to tax and gun charges. Biden's plea deal fell apart after the presiding judge called out a provision of that deal that would have given Hunter Biden blanket immunity from future prosecution in other investigations.
According to reporting from the New York Times, Judge Mary Ellen Noreika repeatedly, at times angrily, said she felt like she was being asked to rubber stamp an agreement she had serious concerns about. Also from the Times, quote, "From the start, the judge seemed highly skeptical of the unusual deal, which offered Hunter Biden broad immunity from prosecution in perpetuity, questioning why it had been filed under a provision that gave her no legal authority to reject it. When she asked Leo Wise, a prosecutor, if there was any precedent for the kind of deal being proposed, he replied, 'No, Your Honor.'" ABC News has more from inside the courtroom. Let's watch.
There was a huddle between the parties, and they are trying to forge some kind of deal that the judge will like and that both parties can agree to. It may not be the same deal exactly that they came into court with, but they're trying to salvage what the judge feels, it seems, was a deal that was just a little bit too subtle for her, and one that mixed apples and oranges in a way that she believes was not fair to Hunter Biden. Because at one point the judge asked the prosecutors, is there still an ongoing investigation? They said yes. She said, well, how can he plead guilty to part of an investigation when it's still ongoing? All of that.
Yeah, so the judge raising some very, very obvious questions, I think. You know, the more the details of this deal comes out, the more the Republican critique of it seems very apt. It looks like they were trying to forgive Hunter Biden for potential criminal wrongdoing that they had not finished investigating. If it later, was revealed that some of this potential influence peddling, other tax issues were more serious and merited criminal charges, that they were already going to be included under this deal, which is unprecedented, as the judge points out. It's all well and good to give him a slap on the wrist for these, again, for things that, I support gun rights. I want drugs to be legal. Some of this stuff seemed pretty minor. Now, while still being true that someone in Hunter Biden who had done the things Hunter Biden had done would have the book absolutely thrown at them. But because, he's a well-connected, he's a political scion, he's the president's son, he gets what looks like much more lenient treatment. That aside, I mean, this is whatever, but it almost seems like it was a pretext for excusing a potential more important criminal matter that might have involved, maybe, it's been alleged, not proven at all, but maybe Joe Biden himself.
Yes. What a wild situation in the courtroom there. The judge trying to have some kind of control over what's happening, but seemingly having none. One where a deal where the judge would have no legal authority to intervene is quite insane. Also, imagine being someone in a jury in a case like this, a judge in the case like this, an observer or a member of the public, where it's like, okay, Hunter Biden was going to plead guilty. So either he is guilty for the thing he was granted, impunity for, essentially. He probably did have the gun at a time when he was on drugs, that felony charge that he thought he wouldn't get prosecuted for as a part of this deal, or he's guilty of the tax fraud. It's one or the other, right? If you're about to enter into a plea deal, it's because you're guilty of something. So for him to then be like, well, if you don't take the deal, in that case, not guilty, it kind of makes a joke of our judicial system.
It reminds me of this ridiculous plot line in, I believe, the second season of 24. Did you ever watch 24?
No.
You're too young for that. Jack Bauer is being held prisoner by one of his recurring antagonists at that time. And this woman has information to trade to our government, but she also wants to kill Jack Bauer. So they give her an immunity deal that they're not going to prosecute her for any of her prior crimes in exchange for her information. And she says, that's not good enough. I want immunity for future crimes I'm about to commit. And they're like, what crime? She's like, well, I'm about to kill Jack Bauer. I want immunity for this crime, which I'm about to do. And this is kind of what they're gesturing at. It's very ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous situation. And I think that if anyone else, as you pointed out, they had a gun in their house and they were on drugs and they had this felony charge, they would be prosecuted heavily, more swiftly. And I think that speaks to our judicial system. Why is it that in both cases, the case of Hunter Biden, it's more easy for us to get him on this charge of, gun possession while you're on drugs? With Donald Trump, why is it more easy to prosecute Donald Trump for, hush money to a sex worker than it is for any of his other litany of political and financial crimes? And it's because the system is simply not designed to prosecute financial crimes or political crimes.
And also, neither he nor Haley Biden, who he was dating at the time, his brother's widow, it does sound like they disposed of the gun improperly. It got just thrown in a dumpster near a school, is what the reporting has suggested, that is a violation of the law. Again, nobody's come down on her or him for that. Just to reiterate, I support the Second Amendment. I don't have any, and I don't want to, prosecute Hunter for his drug issues and addictions. I think that's a health issue. As long as he's not hurting anybody else, fine. But it seems like that's been the focus, both because it's lurid and it's, it has a sexual component. There's the images, it's graphic. But that has been the distraction. Everybody's talking about, is this alien stuff a psyop? They're trying to distract you from the real thing. And that can be annoying because everything's trying to distract you from something. We can all be focused on multiple things at once. But in this case, it does feel like all that stuff, the gun stuff, the drug stuff, is somewhat of a distraction, potentially, from more serious foreign influence.
And I think anyone that's been following the case closely, even if you haven't been following it closely, very easy to be confused. But even if you have been following it closely, it's easy to be confused at what's going down here, because it was my understanding, and I think a lot of people following this is understanding, that the deal was there's not going to be prosecution for the felony gun charge in exchange for the IRS situation. It seems to me that behind closed doors, that was not the deal, that there was a further agreement of no prosecution beyond just that charge, and that's why things fell apart. Because that is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. And the judge apparently feels the same way and was just as confused.
Well, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was asked to comment on yesterday's court proceedings. Let's watch.
Hunter Biden is a private citizen, and this was a personal matter for him. As we have said, the president, the first lady, they love their son, and they support him as he continues to rebuild his life. This case was handled independently, as all of you know, by the Justice Department under the leadership of a prosecutor appointed by the former president, President Trump. So for anything further, as you know, and we've been very consistent from here, I'd refer you to the Department of Justice and to Hunter's representatives, who is his legal team, obviously, who can address any of your questions.
I suspect that is not the last question she will field on this subject. More rising in just a minute.